Hello and welcome to another video, this time with a first impression for Drova Forsaken Skin. This game released a few weeks ago, right in the middle of a lot of really good titles, so I didn't have time to play it yet. But once I got my fingers on it, I got immediately addicted to this top-down Gothic-like RPG with very heavy focus on the RPG aspects. We are looking at a gritty, rugged world with a theme very similar to what you would expect from a Roman or Greek setting. There are also some Celtic influences here, aesthetically speaking, I mean, because the setting itself is a little bit more interesting. You as a character are transported into another world. It is not the afterlife, it is just an alternate reality, a pocket dimension. It's the promised land. It has fantasy built into it. You have very light magic touches, so it's very low fantasy. In my 15 hours so far, I have not been able to cast spells regularly. I just have to beat up enemies, and then I sometimes have spell scrolls I can use to cast. Everything else is just regular medieval fantasy, or in this case Roman or Greek fantasy. Without spoiling too much, you're looking at ruins in this world. You're going to find relics from the past, from the bygones. Basically the Romans got into this world and built up an empire, and you're now here and exploring it. The overall feel of this game, like I already mentioned, is Gothic-like. This means the world is very unforgiving. Characters are very brutal. You're getting mugged, you can steal stuff, you can neglect everything that is nice. This means if you find a character that wants your help, you can negotiate a better reward. Otherwise, you don't need to help them. This goes even so far that the game encourages you to do this, which brings me to my thoughts on the 100%. Some of the quests reward you with an achievement. For this, you have, for example, to fix an arena fight or join one of the two factions. So you have to at least do 2 different playthroughs, possibly 3 if you do 2 regular playthroughs and 1 Iron Man playthrough. So the Iron Man playthrough restricts how much you can save, basically disabling the manual save. So my plan for this one was to go with the classic difficulty first and then do an Iron Man playthrough and choose the other faction. It is very easy to lock yourself out of some achievements, specifically because the state of the world per chapter changes, meaning if you do not interact with one character in the earlier chapter, you're probably going to miss out on the achievement altogether. So if you're trying to 100% this game without a guide or without the achievement list at least, it's going to be very hard, especially some of the more hidden achievements, some of which are also tied to the combat and difficulty of the game. I will first talk a little bit about the combat. The combat is very action heavy, very responsive. You have 2 defensive reactive mechanics. One is the dodge and one is the block. The block can only be performed with a shield, which you can later upgrade to also perform a parry type attack. I focused with a 2-handed build on the dodge mechanic and was very satisfied with this one. For your combat options, you have the dual daggers, you have a sword and shield, you have a 2-handed axe and a 1-handed spear. You can also pair this shield with a sling instead of a shield, so a ranged weapon that you need to reload with stones, and you also have your bow, which is a 2-handed option, all of which makes for a very good combat system. There is a ton of enemy variety in the game. You have multiple versions of one enemy, so for example you can find a Ripper, a wolf type enemy, sometimes with different attack combos, some of which attack much faster, so you need to learn the combat system and react faster in order to be able to beat them. However, there comes a point where you need to upgrade equipment, meaning your armor, because there is basically some unavoidable damage that you just cannot dodge, and some enemies have so much armor and so many resistances that you cannot damage them with a weaker weapon. So you need to upgrade your character and then you come back and just beat everything to a pulp. Your character grows significantly in power, so the difficulty is tied to your level. The higher your level goes, the stronger you get and the more enemies you can defeat. And you cannot cheese this one with finding a very good weapon. For example, you can go and find a 2-handed axe very early on in the game, possibly around the first hour mark, that needs 74 prowess. Prowess is tied to the levels or skill points you find. So you need to progress your character, which brings me to progression. For progression, you have 2 types of skill points. One set you acquire through just leveling, and the other ones you acquire through other means like potions, consumables, so permanent stat increases, and there's also stones you can find in the overworld that provide you with additional skill points. Those skill points you can use to unlock traits. Those traits will enable you to, for example, skin animals or declaw them. You can craft better, you can pick locks better, but you can also increase your stats with those points, and you can also learn combat abilities, meaning you unlock spells or skills for a specific weapon, and those skills you use in combat by damaging enemies. This might sound a little bit restricting, but you need to remember you have 4 accessory slots. So if you're in need of stats, you can just equip 4 rings with stats and you are golden, you can equip the weapon. This is sometimes very much needed, especially since the upgrades for your weapon and for your regular life skills are very much needed and very, very important to get through specific sections of the game. Some doors you just cannot open and you need either the key or to lockpick it. The weapons itself are very dry, just damage increases. Armor is a little bit different. Armor is rare. Once you find armor or are given armor by completing specific tasks or quests for a faction, you're going to feel the difference in power. You're going to look different, you're going to just tank more hits, and some enemies that previously posed a threat are going to be much easier dealt with, which ties very nicely into exploration. You can go anywhere on the map. Sometimes you will just wander into a ruin and be ripped apart by some harpies. Sometimes you will find some magical beings, some mythical creatures, or a bear in a cave. Those enemies will push you to your limits with some clever mechanics, like for example traps, or using elevation, or something that is on the map can help you greatly to deal with the threat. But if you're not ready, you can just come back later. But not everything can be explored right away. Some things are, for example, just inaccessible. Your character doesn't think about interacting with something because they don't have a reason to do this. You don't have a quest. You don't know anything about something. So you need to talk to a character first. That is going to give you some exposition. For example, you can find a specific note near a tent and then come back later and gather the ingredients to save a character. But if you don't do that, you have no idea why you found that bear heart. The game helps you somehow with this one, because in the inventory you can find those bags right besides the portrait of the item. Those indicate those are junk items that you can't just sell. But if an item doesn't have this one, it's a quest item or a potential quest item that you can need for something else that is not required for the main quest. So you want to keep those. So there is a little bit help there. But otherwise, if you do not explore enough, you are going to miss things. And exploration can be very difficult. With the right clicking of your mouse button, you're going to walk slower and reveal a portion of the map right where a cursor is. So something behind a tree. An enemy can be hidden there. A chest can be hidden there. Sometimes you will find a patch of ground that you can dig up. And sometimes you need to use this one to navigate a forest, which you otherwise would not be able to navigate and won't be able to find an item that is going to increase your stats permanently. You can find hidden buttons, you can find hidden trapdoors, you can find hidden items. Everything is possible and you need to use this one very, very liberately to really find everything you can find in the game. So for me, so far, the level design, or better, the world design, is very, very much the best thing about the game. I love exploring it, I love walking through the world, and it heavily reminds me of Gothic. You can find sections that are too difficult, you come back later and push those enemies aside to loot the items that are promised to you. And lastly, there is quest design. I'll keep this one brief to not spoil anything for you. Quests can range from find my sheep to kill those enemies. Or this character doesn't talk to anyone. Try to find out why he doesn't talk to anyone. So you need to run around the map, talk to other NPCs, get information, come back to this NPC and then bait him. For example, sometimes an NPC is going to do something at a specific time. This is very much important for an achievement in the mines. So you need to find out what is going on. You need to find information, be it through a note or something that the character said, and you need to filter that information. Quests are also not displayed anywhere on the map. You get a map in the game, but you don't have any indicators where something is. So you need to find it by just exploring the environment. Very easy for the sheep, you just follow the shit. For other stuff, it's a little bit more complicated. Anyway, I am on my first playthrough, so once I beat the game with 100%, I will be back and talk about it afterwards. So far, I am very much enjoying the game and very much recommending it to anyone that's a fan of the old Gothic, Risen, Alex, or any of those games, because it's very much a love letter to those. However, there is not much voice acting in the game. So, if you liked this video, please leave a like, comment and subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.